All right, welcome back to the Unnamed Movie Podcast. I'm sure by next week we'll have a name ready, but just for now, it's in works. We'll come up with something. If you've got a suggestion, leave it down below. So I'm Ben, and I have a point I'd like to make real quick before we go forward. It has come to my attention that in the description of the last upload, I was described as a hipster, and I am most certainly not. Do I have impeccable fashion sense? Yes. Do I like things that are not necessarily popular? Also yes. Do I hate things just because they're popular? Absolutely not. Fuck you guys.
Are you still wearing a pentagram right now?
Yes. That's independent.
Did you question your own more? We'll get into that.
Yeah, we'll dive into that later if it comes back up.
All right.
So we've got Jacob over here, the tech nerd.
Hello.
And we've got Jimmy, quintessential Jimmy.
Yeah, just me.
Really the archetypical Jimmy, if ever I saw one.
We can measure things in Jimmy's.
Yeah, that's
measure the movie in Jimmy's. There you go.
Like I would say, King Arthur last week's review, or I guess 2 weeks ago, was, I would call it a 7 out of 10 Jimmy's picture. But that's just me.
I think we recorded it 2 weeks ago, but I got it out last week, so upload time should show it.
All right, so last week,
I don't know.
somewhere in there.
Time is weird, man.
So this episode, so this week we saw Baywatch, starring Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, Zac Efron, and some girls whose names I don't know because they weren't in anything that I had seen.
You'll remember for other reasons.
I remember their characters' names.
I remember their bikini color.
Yeah. Pretty solid comedy flick, in my opinion. Pretty true to the old TV show in a lot of ways. Critically panned. Not considered for any Academy Awards, anything like that. What do you guys think?
Let's see. Well, I believe at time of this movie coming out, it was labeled to have close to 17% on Rotten Tomato, and I think that's a bit harsh for it.
I would call it harsh.
I can see the reasons, and we'll get into that a bit later, but I think overall it was definitely better than that as far as going to actually watch it. But that being said, I think there's a very specific demographic for it, and somewhere in the 18 to the 30 range would probably be the peak people who would want to see it.
Primarily male would be my guess.
You'd be surprised.
I mean, certainly not exclusively male, but I would call it primarily male.
Don't worry, we'll get to Wonder Woman later.
So I had my eye out for fan service for all people, right? And I certainly noticed a fair amount of shirtless Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, but there was a lot.
Does Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson ever have a proper shirt in any film for the whole time? For the whole time, is there any film where he has a shirt on the whole time, or something that is actually a shirt, not counting tank tops?
No,
absolutely
exactly.
Not. No way in hell. Right, so there was a decent amount of shirtless Zephron, shirtless The Rock, but there was a lot more.
Plot. Wait, no.
What I would call TNA.
Well, let's just get into that later.
Right, so
we'll have to go specific for that one.
Circle back to that one.
Unfortunately, that does actually require specificness in this film. Jimmy?
I mean, overall, I really like the film. It had more, what am I trying to say? Modern comedy. It didn't refer back to the old show too much, but it did in some ways.
I mean, I'd say enough to make it so knowing at least the general premise and ideas behind the old show were important. But just to highlight for you guys who have no idea about the old show was nowhere near as much of a comedy as this. It was intended to be serious. It was just so incredibly cheesy.
And this one was not that serious.
No, not at all.
No. Although there was a plot there.
There was somewhere.
Yeah.
It existed.
We'll get into that. Well, I'd say it's a plot designed to make jokes.
Yes.
Entirely designed around set pieces and jokes.
Yes. But I'd say overall, a lot of good verbal humor, a lot of solid like modern referential pop culture style stuff. Pretty decent action in a couple chase scenes, that kind of deal. Some solid physical humor, and a lot of great
sexual comedy.
And displays of the prowess of the human form. For example, early on in the flick, there is a scene wherein Zac Efron and Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson compete physically for who is the physically most capable to be a lifeguard, because it's about lifeguards, and there was some of it that was like genuinely like really cool, like there was some stuff that they do in the Strongest Man world competitions.
And there's the Ninja Warrior style.
There's some Ninja Warrior stuff. There's some swimming, I mean, all the classics.
Swimming, all the classics.
All the classics.
Ninja Warrior,
swimming, and strongman competition. Yeah, those are the three.
Swimming's just kind of there.
Well, they're lifeguards.
Yeah, it doesn't have a fancy name. It's just swimming. We have Strongest Man, Ninja Warrior, swimming.
Yeah, so it was all right from that viewpoint. I would say overall totally solid.
Yeah.
Any other thoughts before we dive into the real specifics of it?
To make any negative comments about it, I kind of have to get specific more than general. Well, I'll say this just as far as the comedy goes before we go too far into it. There's a good chunk of the comedy that requires you to be up on pop culture, and as I already said, there is a chunk of the comedy where you do have to have a knowledge of the previous movie or previous shows. Doesn't mean you actually even have to watch an episode. No, you could probably get away with a Wikipedia entry on it and get some of the jokes. It's just not going to be as big of an impact. But
yeah, like on that stuff, I have never watched the Baywatch show.
But you understood the news.
And just from references to it in other things that I've seen, I was able to get all of the comedy there. Just David Hasselhoff was in it, Pamela Anderson was in it. They were lifeguards and slow motion. Like, that was enough.
So nothing know.
And had ridiculous plots.
Yeah, it was a little bit goofy as far as
diamonds
what kind of stuff happened.
Surfboard, sort of ridiculous.
And that's just funny.
The thing is, it was serious then. Seriously cheesy, but serious. And again, another thing with this film, it's up to you whether to interpret the cheese as style and intentional or bad. The question is, does it really matter? Or was it perfect being as cheesy as it was in some cases?
So to get into that, I think we should dive into the specifics on it. So from this point forward, spoiler warning on Baywatch. So, if you really care about really care about spoilers, stop watching. Otherwise, you're fine. It's a movie about boobs.
And also, it's a comedy, so even if you know the general plot line, you're gonna want to see the jokes that we're not mentioning in this. We're kind of glazing over jokes, but we're not really going into them in detail. There's a lot more that we're not even going to mention probably in the podcast, and it's got enough jokes and one-liners in there that it's going to be good for a good review no matter what.
Definitely. So basic gist of it: Zac Efron is Matt Brody, former Olympic swimmer, 2-time gold medalist. Right. Got trashed the night before the relay and threw up in the pool. So he becomes disgraced, and he has to go try and be a lifeguard at Baywatch Beach.
And for some reason is broke. That's not really explained how the money just disappeared for him.
So the idea, I think, is that he loses his sponsorships and then he just burned through it really fast.
Because he's not used to...
Because he's dumb.
Yeah.
Not used to having no money.
So he goes to Baywatch, which is run by Dwayne The Rock Johnson.
Mitch. Too.
Mitch, what's his last name? It was,
It's Mitch. And just Mitch.
He didn't really...
Is Mitch something? There was a few people who called him by his last name a couple times. I cannot remember it off the top of my head.
Most of them were Mitch because Mitch is the name of the
David Hasselhoff
character
from the show.
Because this is a soft reboot with more comedy focus.
Yes. So Mitch is the head lifeguard. He's friendly and well liked by everybody, except for the beach cop, who kind of there's some friction there, but they're generally friendly. There's some solid comedy in the opening sequence where he's going through and he's talking to everybody on the beach, right? Like
his normal daily routine.
He's going for his jog to warm up or whatever.
We're kind of going a bit specific here.
So
moving forward.
The
overall antagonist is this dress-wearing hot character who I don't remember the name of. The name wasn't relevant.
No
She
idea.
was just a set-piece evil villain. She was a joking set-piece evil villain.
Hispanic to some degree. I think they said what country she was from, but
that doesn't matter.
Fuck if I know.
Anyway, what she wants to do is
she's bringing in drugs
and wants to take control of the entire beachfront.
It's pretty convoluted. It's like
basically she's bringing drugs to lower the property value.
That way she can
buy the entire buy all the property so that she can make an exclusive area and limit the number of people who can even go to the beach. And
also
it's
make
a convoluted evil villain.
I think at one point she said she wanted to make it into a private beach and get rid of the whole Baywatch lifeguard team.
Yeah. That was the intention, I think.
It's pretty convoluted evil villain stuff as far as things go. Like
fairly standard.
It's not even Bond villain. I think it's intentionally intentionally kind of ridiculous to kind of
and just not really that well thought out. Just she's doing drugs and she's trying to get rid of everybody and make it private.
And then she'll just do strange, random, cruel acts to do it.
Yeah, real bitch, in that way.
And justifies it with feminism,
which was hysterical to me, I have to say.
You wouldn't care. You wouldn't think I was crazy if I was a man. You're trying to kill him.
So whatever. She has a valid point to some degree.
Maybe no. No.
Her point is rooted in reality, I think.
I don't know. We'll get back to again. Wonder Woman. We'll have to deal with feminism more there. This is just a weak motivation for the character.
Weak motivation for the character, absolutely. So the lifeguard team, they're investigating her, and the cops are like, "You can't do that because you're lifeguards." And Zac Efron's like, "You know what? The police are right. We're lifeguards." Being real logical. Yeah. And then everybody else is like, "Hey, Zac Efron, no. We're lifeguards.
Lifeguard pursuit.
We have to be better than..." They're vigilantes, basically, right? They're working outside the law.
They do. Then they even do a whole disguise undercover thing. They chase down villains in way over the top ways for lifeguards, despite literally having no weaponry. And they just get away with it because it's a comedy movie and it's ridiculous. And it's a complete throwback to the old thing where. In the Hasselhoff shows, they would do the same thing. Heck, even as a joke at one point, they mentioned a bunch of old plot lines from the show as things that happened as past cases.
And then they save the day.
Everyone has a change of heart. Actually, decides to drink the Kool-Aid and become a mad vigilante lifeguard.
Along with the others,
And then...
slow motion tits everywhere.
Yeah, then... Pamela Anderson shows up and she's in slow-mo the whole time she's there.
She doesn't have... I don't even think she has a proper line. And she's just flipping her hair and it's going so slow. The characters are just wondering, when will this be over so we can do something? This is going to take a while.
Which was, I thought, pretty funny. I enjoyed the references to the slow-mo being a thing that they were actually experiencing to some degree.
They had no idea how. They just rolled with it.
Yeah, so that's the gist of it. Overall, solid comedy.
Yeah.
Decent action in some of the Dwayne The Rock Johnson versus the villains stuff. There's a good fight scene with.
I'm gonna have to say as far as Dwayne's fights go.
Oh, these don't compare.
The same year, we had Fate of the Furious earlier, and there's a very well done prison fight scene. It's over the top. It's ridiculous,
but it was awesome.
But the choreography and potency of it was by far stronger than these fight scenes.
That was an action movie, like all the way. Whereas this was a comedy, and I think that for them being as focused on comedy as they were, the action was totally up to snuff. Like, it was absolutely acceptable.
I think it's just for me, it's mostly how close they are in release to each other. Like, Fate of the Furious only just left theaters as this was coming in.
Yeah, so it's fresh in your mind.
It's still very close together.
Any specific thoughts, Jimmy, that you want to dive into?
No, not that I can think of, no.
I mean, honestly, this is probably going to be a shorter one because a lot of it's going to be... It's a very simplistic movie, so there's not a whole lot to nitpick apart. It hits the same tone for most of it. I will say a lot of the humor was based on insults going back and forth. So if you're not into sort of... It's almost like a hazing style of comedy, and that's a lot... Kind of like... I think one of the recent examples is the hazing in the Hacksaw Ridge by the sergeant. The sort of ridiculous insults that they throw out there, or the ridiculous insults that would show up in Full Metal Jacket. It's those sort of ridiculous joking insults that show up, and they're played off differently, of course, because the characters will go back and forth with it.
It's sort of friendly as opposed to
malicious. But it's that style of comedy that they're running off of. So if you're really into that sort of comedy and are kind of okay with most of the film being based around it, it's really up your alley.
Yeah, there's a solid bit of that for sure. Mostly from The Rock towards Zac Efron, and then there's a solid payoff for it near the end.
And of course, there's physical comedy.
Plenty of that.
More.
Do we want to...
Very sexual.
Do we want to give away the primary...
No. That is a gem.
It is.
That is.
All right.
Yeah.
So we're...
What do you think?
Not going to give that away.
You've been really quiet.
Yeah. Give us your inner thoughts, Jimmy.
What did you think of the tits in slow motion?
Or
how the dog has opinion. Look.
The dog really liked it.
That's what they call me. So, I would say, generally speaking, there was a lot of sexuality, which I appreciated as a lover of sex and sexuality in general. I'm an avid fan, everybody.
Just so y'all know.
Big time into it. But whatever. But fucking whatever, right? Like, I'm evil and I'm a bad person and I hate myself, so whatever. Like, it happens. Anyway, there's boobs and I liked that, so
Yeah. Gotta love those boobs.
I mean, you got the slow motion boobs. They had to question how it was occurring and how she was the exact right amount of wetness.
They did.
There is
have
an exact right
amount.
amount.
They talked about how, whatever the chubby guy's name is,
Ronnie,
whatever.
The tech guy.
One of the girls, comes up and says, "Is she walking in slow motion?" He's like, "Do you see it? You see it too?" And that was
a solid moment.
That was.
Yeah. There was a great exchange between Summer, the pale brunette, and Zac Efron.
Mm-hmm.
Where he looks at her boobs, you know, and
she calls him out on it.
And because she's in a bikini, like it's difficult to stop yourself just like the once, right? Like it happens.
It happens, yeah.
She calls him out, totally acceptable, like not a thing that's like a dick.
She said she was all right with it too.
And then, but he then continues to do it like repeatedly, and there's some solid like comedy in that moment. I don't remember the specifics of the joke, but I remember finding it really amusing. And you know,
and then there's the Dwayne. Then there's the great scene with Dwayne fighting in the kids' room, and everything's just soft and safe, and they're just tossing them at each other.
So it's near the end of the lifeguard pursuit. Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson has one of the villains' henchmen in a child's bedroom because he's chased him there.
Chased him in someone's house, yeah.
And they're fighting with children's toys as weapons. And then there's just a great joke, which is in some of the trailers, where the villain grabs a picture in a
family
frame,
photo, yeah,
and he's about to swing it.
Whoa, no baby photos.
He grabs it. No baby photos. Have some class, and he takes it and then punches him in the face. And then like kicks him out the window or whatever.
Yeah, something like that happens.
It was solid. It was goofy and it was just a good laugh. All right. Biggest drawback, worst thing about the movie, absolutely, was the 12-year-old girls sitting behind me who had not heard of Baywatch before, I'm pretty sure, because when David Hasselhoff makes his cameo, they were like, who's that?
That was just awful.
I'm not even sure if they had parents with them.
I'm pretty sure they did.
No, they didn't.
Like, don't let kids sneak into movies. We were
totally not cool.
I
don't support violations of private companies' rules. Break the law as much as you want. If you're on private property, obey the rules there. And sneaking into a rated R movie when you are not 17 is one of those things. It's like, come on. We all waited until we were adults. You can too. It'll come out on Blu-ray.
Yeah, just watch it at home. You can wait.
So then,
or get cooler parents.
Yeah, just get cooler parents.
So at the end, Pamela Anderson makes a cameo, and she is arguably more famous from Baywatch, right? Like it's quite possible that if you
I blame that nice American Idol.
Yeah, but they did it again. They were like, "Who's that?" To Pamela goddamn Anderson in Baywatch. What the fuck? Like how?
These kids just don't know.
I mean, sorry, right? Like I'm not trying to make this a rated R podcast, which it is. I'm pretty sure I dropped the F-bomb a couple times.
It's fine. But there's no rated R. We just don't get ad funding. It's fine.
Whatever. You know, I can't be expected to make money.
Yeah, well, I mean, how big is this thing yet?
We've got like 13 views last time I checked.
Yeah, we don't really... No one's pressed that red button at the bottom, which you guys should.
Because this is going to be weekly, right? Like, so if you want updates, you should subscribe.
Weekly if we can.
We're going to try. Movies come out a lot, and we go see them. So, you know, there you go.
There you
I
go.
mean, that's really all there is to it, right? Is that, yeah, if you like the way we review movies, we're going to continue to do it. It's basically free for us, so.
And we're not going to claim any specific day of the week. It's just going to show up sometime the next week.
We'll try to maintain some level of regularity, but, I mean, come on.
Schedules.
We're busy guys. I'm doing stuff all the time. Like, almost every day for several hours. I'm doing something.
Maybe.
Usually.
Have fun with that, Tinder.
Yeah. Well, you know.
Any other side comments, Jimmy? Any other side stories? Anything funny?
No.
Any Jimmyisms?
Well, soon I'm going to try and get the social media up and running, and then, just look us up and, friend us or follow us, depending on which one you're on. If we go that far into two of them.
I think it's just you like the page and it gives you, and follow it.
Okay, well,
I don't know.
So whatever it is,
I'm not that big into it, so we'll try and get that up and running soon. So
Maybe even
like us,
more
whatever.
view on Rotten Tomatoes. Ooh, I don't know.
We absolutely might do that. So out of 100, Jacob, how well do you think this picture did?
All right, so looking at it somewhat critically, but I'm not going to be near as harsh as the critics. I would say 65 Jimmies out of 100 Jimmies.
Nice. Yeah, I would say, just from my own perspective as a relatively positive person, I tend to look at the good instead of the bad. And just as a comedy, right? And just standing alone as a comedy, not as a film or whatever. I would call it 80, 85 Jimmies out of Jimmy.
and I'm gonna have to go with around 70, 71, somewhere in there.
Of
Jimmies.
yourself?
Yeah. Of myself, yes.
Okay.
71 of myself.
Cool. So we'll get the clones ready.
It's gonna be
at least 99 more of me.
Maybe.
Just
Maybe.
in case.
Just in case.
Backup Jimmys. Don't worry. If we lose this one, we have the plan.
We can rebuild him. We have the
We'll just
technology.
hold open hosts. We'll if we run out of Jimmy, we'll just have a open what's it called? Casting.
Yeah.
For
cattle
Jimmys.
call.
If your name is Jim, you're allowed to join. If Jimmy dies, it'll be fine. We'll keep him here for now.
For now.
And like I said, Jimmy is the quintessential Jimmy, right? Like, there's really no way another Jimmy could be as much of a Jimmy as our Jimmy, but
Yeah.
they could be close.
Also, we've decided his new username is going to be Chain Banjo Saw due to off podcast circumstances.
This is news to me.
Yeah.
Yeah, you walked away.
Oh, yeah,
you weren't there.
Well,
I am busy. I do things.
So, yeah, well, how would you let's just give you the question that we used. And this is coming from an insane friend of mine. And when I say insane, I mean...
Literally psychopathic? Because I know one of those.
Yeah, questionably. Well, not that sort of insane. More like he's just a very bizarre person.
Yeah.
Right.
So, if you had an unlimited number of banjos to chop down a forest, how would you proceed?
Do I have any other resources to work with, or is it just infinite banjos?
I'm just giving you this information.
So I've got infinite banjos and a forest that needs to come down.
Yes.
So in that scenario, I imagine what I do, I smash up 600-700 banjos into splintery shards.
Yeah.
Right, Tinder-sized. Like kindling, even. And I disperse it throughout the forest, making a large pile somewhere fairly central. I then take the rest of my infinite banjos and spread them out according to size, starting small, moving outwardly larger. So the smallest on top of the pile of smashed splinters of banjo, and getting bigger and bigger banjos as we go out, assuming they're not identical banjos. If they are, I break some into smaller pieces, right? And then I set fire to the big pile in the middle, destroying the forest.
Burn down the forest.
But our friend, who we may eventually just throw on here because he's sometimes funny, David, here is his plan. His plan was to take one of the banjos and sharpen it into an axe. Then hire a group of engineers to begin mass producing this. Then after the mass production is successful and they have been applied to the forest, he would have to ramp up by improving the model. So his idea of improving the model was have his engineers design a better banjo saw. So it came to the point where he decided he needed a chain banjo saw. A chainsaw made of banjos.
Entirely
of banjos to successfully kill. So we decided that sounds like an excellent name for Jimmy's new username. So we're going to have to give him this username. How he will use it, we do not know yet.
But look out for
that. But he is Mr. Chain Banjo Saw now.
Friend him on Steam and
That's not even his Steam profile.
Whatever.
Change it now. We can actually find you.
Yeah, my other one's not.
Alright, so I think that is a pretty decent wrapping up point. We ended with a little funny story about a chain banjo saw. Thank you for listening, everybody. We'll be back next week with Pirates of the Caribbean 5.
They don't tell no tales.
They don't, because they can't talk.
And like and subscribe. And maybe I'll have an end card at this point. I don't know.
We might.
I'll have to figure out how to rig it. We might have the big shiny button right in the general center area. You can press to subscribe. Who knows?
Also, little side thing. If you have a specific game you want used as the B-roll, just for the visual of this, leave that in the comments. We're open to whatever.
Games are cheap.
Typically.
As long as it's not a console exclusive, which consoles can make things a little bit messy and expensive.
Yeah.
But I have a wide variety of games. Not even sure exactly what I'm putting on this one, but it will be there. And we'll end it here. Have a good day.